For all the lovely people that are watching this video on release, a quick reminder that you still have a few hours to take part in the giveaway that I'm doing together with the guys from the FMB shop, where you have the chance of winning a keychain, a baggage tag, a t-shirt of the MD-83 DAT farewell flight, a original MD-83 DAT safety card, and most crucially, of course, also the model of the MD-83 from DAT in Scale 500 made by Herpa Wings. So if you right now head over to my Instagram account, BongoPlanes, and the Instagram account of the FMB shop, then you will find all the details you need to know how to take part. I will of course leave the links in the description below. Normally Herpa is actually quite good when it comes to models of Dreamliners, but in this case they have messed up. Where and how, we'll of course check out right after the drop. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where today we'll take a closer look at a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner of Oman Air. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Oman Air branding. Then on the back side of the box, well, unfortunately Herpa once again gives us this dreadful box design with yet another cutout which does not protect my aircraft model, makes the whole thing look very cheap, and of course makes the box very unstable, but Herpa refuses to give collectors what they deserve: a nice looking box. And here she is, the Boeing 787-9 in the current standard livery of Oman Air. As I mentioned in the intro of the video, this aircraft model does have a few issues, but we will get into each and every one throughout this video. But the best way to discover all the issues there might be and the things that the model does well is simply by taking a tour around the aircraft model. And as always, we start our tour around the aircraft model with a look at the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer have the Oman Air branding. And on the vertical stabilizer we actually find our very first issue, because the silver leading edge here has been printed on off angle, and that means that the silver lining on one side goes much further back than on the other side. Poor quality control here from Herpa Wings, but at least the detailing on the horizontal stabilizer looks pretty decent. On the fuselage we then have the Dreamliner branding, the full registration code of the aircraft, and towards the very tail of the aircraft we do have the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we then have the writing of Oman Air, both in English and in Arabic writing. We do also find a few static ports, the aircraft type specification, and the flag of the Oman. On top of the fuselage we then also have the addition of this lovely set dome, where I think Herpa has done a pretty decent job overall. When we then look at the cockpit section, we will find the cockpit windows with the window wipers printed on. We do also have the circular marking around the nose cone, and above the cockpit windows we also find the emergency hatch for the cockpit printed on. When we then look at the engine nacelles, we can see they have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but do have the silver leading edge printed on, as well as the Oman Air branding and some safety relevant markings. From the side it does look like the engines are pointing a tad too much upwards, but I actually don't think it's the placement of the engines so much as a different issue, which I will get into a bit later in the video. The physical detailing of the engines overall I think is pretty alright, especially the chevron nozzles, and of course from the front the engine fan blades are very nicely detailed. From the engines we can move on to the wings, which we should definitely also take a closer look at, starting off with the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out somewhat nicely, but could have been a little bit more pronounced overall. We do have the marking as to where to walk on the wing on the upper side, and when we then look at the underside of the wings we can see some more nice physical detailing and also the full registration code printed on once more. Then we have the landing gear on this aircraft model, which is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all their Dreamliner aircraft models, but unfortunately on this aircraft model we have a few issues on the front landing gear, and I'm not just talking about the missing printed details here, because unfortunately the front landing gear is simply way too tall. It is especially noticeable when we place it next to another Dreamliner model from Herpa Wings. The problem here is not that Herpa has changed the landing gear, because they haven't, but the problem here is that the carving into the fuselage is not deep enough, and therefore the landing gear can't be placed correctly, giving us this really annoying effect that the aircraft looks like it's about to take off. Something Herpa usually does quite well on the Dreamliners, and also have done so in this case, is the carving around the ram air intakes. That leads us however to the next issue on this aircraft model, because I thought this aircraft model belonged to Oman Air and not Oman Air. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner in the current standard livery of Oman Air in scale 1:500 from Herpa Wings. And what can we say about this aircraft model? I mean, to be honest, releasing a model in 2022 at a hefty retail price of €35 and then having 3 or 3.5 issues is pretty bad. The engines do seem to tilt a bit upwards, but as I say, I believe this is more an issue of the front landing gear tilting the entire plane upwards and therefore maybe enhancing the effect of the engines tilting upwards. Then of course we have the front landing gear, and that is something that will affect the entire production line. And this is something that Herpa definitely should have spotted during production and should not have released the model as such. And the fact that they have done so just proves once more that they don't have quality control and don't care about their product. Then of course we have the continuing issue of Herpa destroying printed details with a hole in the fuselage for a stand which is not included with the models. And then we have the print issue around the vertical stabilizer with the silver leading edge. Luckily that should not be something that affects every single aircraft model, but something you need to look out for before you buy this model. So overall I'm left with a quite disappointing feeling, because the Oman Air livery really suits the Dreamliner and it should have been a really good 2022 release from Herpa Wings, but unfortunately it is a hard miss. So with that once more disappointing Herpa Wings model, it is time to end today's video. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like, that would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe, that would be absolutely awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, hope to see you soon again, I'm checking out, and bye.